Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to another episode of Just Ask Cher Live. Super excited to be here. This is going to be an awesome show. I've been preparing for this because I keep on getting questions. And that's the whole point of the show anyway. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Cher Jones, and I focus on helping people communicate their value at work for work. So people actually understand what you do and they know when that they need to involve you, especially when there's teams, especially when you have something a little bit more technical that you got to break through the noise so that people truly value your contribution. And also, at the same time of valuing your contribution, it speeds up your performance. So, this is an exciting day that I'm excited about because, I've been working on the show. So, welcome to the show. Welcome to joining me live. And for those of you in the chat, hello, Steve. Hello, Allison. I'm so glad you're excited, Allison. I feel excited. Because I've been playing with the tech, to be honest. So, um, there's things that I am doing right now, and definitely let's get this started. There's things I've been playing around with and, trying to get the cadence and the flow to the show. But that's what happens when you work and play with the technology, which I absolutely love. So, for those of you who are watching right now, whether you are team live or team replay, let me know in the comments because it doesn't matter when you're watching. The fact that you're watching, I appreciate you. I'm also experimenting with the whole concept of doing it on a Saturday morning. Is this the flex? Is the Saturday morning flex, or is it better Friday? I might try an evening time just to see and then poll you guys later. When do you want to watch? When do you want to learn? Because what I do promise is action packed value regardless. So I know for those of you in Canada, it is a long weekend. For those of you in Toronto local, it is what we would call Caravana weekend. So what's funny is over the years, as I get older, with my millennial adjacent self, Caravana became less as important, but it's still a fun time. So for all of you guys catching the vibe out there, definitely appreciate you. So I appreciate you watching the replay because you know what? I know you're watching the replay. So thank you so much for watching Team Live. George, thank you for hanging out with me as well. And so how does this show work? So what happens is I get 3 questions prepared, ready to go. But of course, I want your questions in the comments as well. So if you've got a question on how you should show up, some of the questions that I get right now, they are sent to me via DM. Sometimes they are in the comments below. And so if you've got a question, you want it answered, but you don't want the world to know it's you, you can send me the question privately, of course. And as well, I will be rocking out 3 questions. I also, in every show, I hope to share just like a hot topic, something that I've been seeing, something that's either stopped my scroll, right? The scroll stopper of the week. And whether I break it down, how it works, or why, just generally why we should be talking about it. And of course, I love the tech, so I always have a recommendation for you as well. And I'll be answering your questions live and sometimes bringing them over into the next show. So do not be shy. Do make sure that you are sharing your questions. So 3 questions. And the first question, just so you know, is going to be focused on letting them know about my team. So that's what was asked. How do we let people know more about the value of your team? Our second question is going to be about your brand and your boss. Are you catching a vibe that your brand might be outshining your boss? What should you do? Well, we're going to talk about that. And for those of you who are in a role right now, you're not trying to leave your company, but you want to be doing more than what you're doing, except you don't want to disrupt the apple cart because of the way this current job market is going. You're not trying to, you know, make a problem or create a problem and send the wrong signals. So I'm going to show you how to send the right signals if you have way more to offer, or there's just things that they don't know about you. So that's what's on deck as far as our three questions are concerned. And throughout the conversation, of course, I'm going to be asking you what you think. What's your vibe? What's your take? So let's get into question number one. All right, question number one. Let's get into it. And this is coming from Dr. Ellen Taylor. And here's her question. What's the most impactful way to demonstrate you and your team's value to stakeholders? Some thoughts I have are roadshows to stakeholder meetings, demonstrations of successful wins, etc. Any suggestions would be great. Well, first of all, let's just talk about the fact that this is a great question, Dr. Ellen Taylor. Now let's get into it. Yes, because when you think about it, that whole idea of the road shows and getting out in front of the teams that you serve so that they're more aware of you, very important. But that is not the strategy, it's the vehicle. So when we think about the actual, whether you're doing a presentation, whether you're just having conversations and you're showing the depth of your bench and the things that you have accomplished, it is very important in how you approach that strategy. So it can't just be, and not to say that you're thinking this, but it can't just be, I'm going to show you our wares, show you what we've done, show you our wins. The demos and the stakeholder meetings, and the wins of what you guys have done in the past only makes sense in context to who you're in front of. So here's what I mean by that. It's how are you going to make that demo or those proof that you guys have done great work, you're doing great work. How are you going to make it so that they're listening? Because right now you're still talking about somebody else. You're not talking about them. So the one thing that you have to make sure you are doing is you are framing your expertise, your team's expertise, and the wins of the team based off of who you're in front of. So what is it they want to accomplish? Are you able to draw the line between, hey, we won this for them and we can do this for you too? So in the meantime, while I'm sharing the rest of my tips, I want you guys to know is, do you think your team gets the right recognition right now? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments, and we'll keep that live. So make sure you are letting me know in the comments. And of course, PP Torre, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining as well. But back to that question, I want to make sure that question is answered for you guys as well. So if you guys have some tips, make sure you're sharing that. And so the first thing I said was make sure that it's not just about what you've done. It's about how you are flipping that story so that it's relevant to the people that you're talking to, because it depends on your stakeholders, because for some people, they're right now their big problem is speed, or it's revenue, or it's adoption, or customer experience, or efficiency. So what are the stories, or what are the things that you guys have done that reflect what they want? And how are you framing that win, or those presentations, or those skills of your team? How are you framing it towards their problem? So what you have to think about when you're going on the roadshow, because I think, again, that is a great vehicle to get your value in front of them. You just have to make sure that it's not your canned presentation. You've got to customize it to what your team has identified that team wants. Another incredible thing to think about as well is, while you are sharing those wins, while you are sharing that proof in context to the selection that you know that they want to achieve as well. You wanna also be seeding how did that team, the other team that you created or whatever it is you guys done, how you launched a product, whatever the case may be, how did you work with those individuals to get that win that you are now sharing? You too can has this, right? So, you wanna think about embedding your it's almost like you're subli you are what it's an inception point. You're, like, planting in their head. You know, when the one of the things that this team did is they called us in early. They called us in at the planning stage, and that's one of the reasons why we were able to accomplish this. Or they were able to beef up their documentation to have a clear outline of here's what we don't want. Or they worked with our team, closely with our team before they put in the proposal, before they put in the project request, so that we could better help identify how to position what it is they want, and they get clarity on what they want. Whatever it is you need your team to do, or you need that team to how they need to work with you, that's what you wanna embed in those stories. Those stories are not just about wins, they're about the best practices as well. So, I wanna make sure that you are doing it. And so that's really around revealing those conditions for success. And, it makes the roadshow a lot more purposeful because they're seeing it from their perspective. You're saying, "Oh, I want that. They got that. You guys did that for them. And then here's how we made sure that we were able to do that and get those kind of results." And then the next thing you need to do is make sure that you're positioning those wins so that they're repeatable. And the repeatable side of things really comes down to what it is you can do for them too. So those are really important things. And also, here's the most important thing is everything that we are sharing right now is really about a communication skill. You got to make sure that you're showing them that you understand it, that you've connected it to what your value is and what your team can do. You're proving it with these case studies. And now you need to make sure that you are moving it, meaning moving the conversation along. So you're already getting them into next steps so they can start thinking with this win in mind and how they see it for them. So the important thing here is not only just to take that understand it, connect it, prove it, and move it mentality and communication style. This has to be um, in both the roadshow, but also how your team is interacting and communicating their value at the micro level so they continue to see that value because that presentation will be forgotten. But when your team knows how to communicate the value in the same way, that is what is really important here. So it just allows you to make sure that you are communicating in the most effective way. So let's jump into the comments right now. George, I love this. Let's see, recognition not utilized in many corporate organizations. That is a significant problem. And oftentimes it's because people don't know what they're recognizing. So this is like a two-way street because if we're not positioning the value of the work of the team, the work of the individual in a way that they can actually see it, in a way that we break through the noise so that they see it, because everybody right now is battling so much noise. It's a battle for attention inside the workplace. And so we have to make sure that we are breaking through that attention. Marketers already know how to do this, and that's why they've been talking about the attention economy for so long, because in their spaces for so long is about how do we get their attention. Now it's an interest economy, but for us in the workplace, you're battling somebody's phone, you're battling somebody's responsibilities, you're battling the teammates, the team interaction, the culture, you're battling their burnout, and somehow you have to be recognized. So that's the whole point of making it about them by showing that you understand it, connect your value to it, prove that you can do it, and of course, you gotta move the conversation forward. And that's a skill that I teach teams as far as so that they are conscious of the value that they are sharing with the people who are actually working with them. And it's a skill that I call value wrapping. And once you get the idea of how to communicate your value in micro plus the big value communication moments, it changes everything. So that's something I want to keep in mind. And are there any, you guys, if you're watching, if there's any questions, make sure you ask them in the comments. And hopefully I am getting all of them because sometimes the comments don't always come through. So I'm just going to check on my phone because that matters. And I want to make sure I see you. And before I get into question number two, I want to show you this week what has stopped my scroll. So it looks like I got all the questions. And I want to show you what stopped my scroll. So let's take a look at it. Let's talk about what stopped my scroll this week. All right. So this is the scroll stopper of the week. It definitely caught my attention because this is something that LinkedIn is buzzing about. And I want to know how you feel about it. So basically, LinkedIn, and this scrolls, this is the first person I saw it from. And let me just maximize it so you can see everything here. So Nick posted, LinkedIn, I love you. I really do. Already that stopped my scroll. Just like, what do you love about LinkedIn? Adding features like this seem like a good idea on the surface. So what's he talking about? So let me just scroll down a little further. I don't know if you've seen this blowing up right now in your space, but LinkedIn is right now getting a bad rap for basically being the network with the most AI slop. Yeah. And more than any other network, which sounds crazy, but that is the case. So now they've given a button where you can actually report somebody who you think it's AI slop. And in in theory, I think it works, right? Like I get where you're going with this LinkedIn, and that's exactly what Nick was talking about. But the concern is if somebody doesn't care about this post, are they going to use it as a way to, or they're annoyed by the post? That doesn't mean it's AI slop, but if they're annoyed about the post, if they don't care about the post, if they feel like, you've done them wrong or something like that, is this button going to be misused? So I want to know from you guys, what do you think? Do you think this button will be will be misused? Are people going to use it with bad intentions or the wrong intentions as a way to register a complaint because it's the only complaint mechanism that they got? That is the question for me today. I'm curious to see what you guys think. So whether you're watching live or the replay, let me know. So that stopped my scroll. I've been thinking about it. I've seen it for the last 2 days blowing up on the network. So I know that in my LinkedIn, as of yet, my rollout, I don't have that button, but I am a little concerned with it just because of how, people might feel like they're misusing it. So at least good try, LinkedIn. You're acknowledging the fact that there is a lot of AI slop and it does need to shut it down. So that's something that we need to think about. And you know what? Now that we're thinking about it, I'm going to give you something else to think about as we move into the next question. Now, moving on to question number two. This comes from Winston A. Henderson, and he's asking for someone who may want to know. So he's looking out for you guys. And here's his question. How do you make your value visible without making your boss feel threatened? Now, that is a powerhouse question. Let's get into it. This is something that I'm seeing a lot, especially in the DMs in private, that people start building their brand, and then all of a sudden, whether it's their boss or a teammate is looking at the fruits of their branding. And when I say branding, I'm talking about they spent the time working on their LinkedIn profile. They're talking about culture at work. They're talking about team wins. They're talking about their wins and they're vocal about it. They're being intentional about communicating their value. And w- quite frankly, when you do that, you garner attention. When you start being intentional about showing your contribution even to culture, even to for example, you plan an initiative for the team where you're starting to do this work and people are looking and they're saying, "Oh, I like what I see here." Sometimes because of that additional spotlight, others are looking at you like, "Hey, what's you're now starting to someone knows who you are." And sometimes it attracts the someone who is on a higher leadership team taking a look at you and your activity. Or sometimes you're building these relationships that kind of skip over that person, or that person now feels threatened because they see that someone else is interacting with you that carries influence and power, and they're having a problem with it. This, believe it or not, happens more than you think. So, and by the way, my cue for you is, have you experienced brand jealousy before? I'm going to share some tips, share your experience, a yes or no in the comments or whatever you want to share. But the one thing that I want to give you as a strategy, because what happens to some people is they start putting themselves out there, and while they're getting a positive attention, they're getting that one negative piece of attention. And what do we pay attention to? The bad news, not the awesome stuff that's happening. So, are there ways to mitigate the jealousy? Absolutely. And one of the ways that you can do it is make sure that you're communicating your why. So, why are you doing this? And when you can connect it back to performance and trust and credibility, it makes people understand that while they may have been interpreting it as however they whatever their trauma is around interpreting your actions, but they may have seen it as something where, they're jealous about it, and they're seeing you as they're labeling it as you showing off. The one thing that you want to do is communicate your why. And what I have recommended that a lot of people do is also make sure that if you are doing something bigger, so for example, you're creating case studies, or you're creating some sort of thought leadership about how the impact of a best practice, or how your team got to this public win, of course recognizing what's private and what's public, but all thought leadership and all proof is not just for the internet. It can go internal. It can go, these same sort of what we would see as a post could also be in a Slack message. It could be in an email, could be in an internal networking platform. So having that and doing that, but also including it in your performance plan. This is one way where there when people at least see the why are you doing it? What are you connecting this to? Um, for example, going back to performance, I'm connecting this back to I'm showcasing the wins so that we can showcase the strategy. So going back to our first question of what we've done here so that other people can see what made this so successful, what made this product launch so successful, what made this implementation get adopted so quickly. So that's important, is when you can connect the dots on your why. Um, you want to make sure, because I see this a lot, is then people tend to, when they feel that little bit of pushback, like someone's watching, they shrink, and then everything becomes we, without owning their place in the contribution, owning the having a clear value articulation of the contribution. So what you want to make sure is that you have that right line between we, this is what we, our team did, and this is what I was directly responsible for. And here's how I saw the impact. So making sure that you're one, not hogging all the credit, but also not shrinking as well. And you also want to make sure that your boss also has the language to advocate for you because they may not. And so, where does this go? This goes on your internal or LinkedIn profiles where they have clear language and clear. And when I say clear language on your expertise and your skills and how it relates to the work that you're doing right now. Because when they have that language and they have an idea of where you're going with your brand and your visibility, now they can leverage that to make them feel good as well. So those are things that you want to take into consideration. Again, if you've ever seen that happen to you, let me know. And I want to make sure that at the end of the day, you're still owning it. People, when they know what it is you're doing, when they know what it is you've done, and why they can trust you to do it, you get the right attention, even if it's drawing another set of eyes. And that's what you need to be able to walk in and make sure people have a clear path and a clear language on how to advocate for you as well. And sometimes you're just going to have to deal with that jealous boss, but it is always worth it, especially when you can tie it back to the work you do. So I hope that question, Winston, was answered well enough for your friend. And we all have one of those friends. So make sure if you have tips and you're watching this on the replay, make sure that you are also sharing that in your questions and your answers or tips in the comments. Have you ever seen that for yourself? Let me know. And so next up, I wanted to share a breakthrough before we head into question number 3. I want to share a tech breakthrough that just was game changing. So let's get ready for that right now. All right, time to get into Tap That App with 2 P's. That's right. Tap that app with 2 P's. And so what we've got here is, I don't know, for those ChatGPT users, you've probably been getting the pop-up or the notification that voice has now improved. And one thing that I'm trying to improve right now is I want to be more active. So I want to go on more walks, but I've had a heavy workload right now. And their voice mode is something, it can be a little annoying because it does these thinking things like, let me process that. But it is a little bit more interactive. So let me explain what I did. So basically, I wanted to go for a walk, but I had to review documents. I had to go and literally work with what I've been writing and putting together. And so what I did was I uploaded those documents as markdown files to a new chat. And I explained to chat that I'm going on a walk and we need to go through it section by section. And you need to take my notes. We can make updates. And I literally went on an hour walk. And where I live, it's literally uphill both ways. But for the most part, I would say I was talking to chat for about 50 minutes of that walk where he would read something to me. I'm listening to it and then I'm giving feedback. And sometimes we're rewriting, sometimes we're going through. But what this allowed me to do was it gave me the freedom to get off the screen, walk, listen. You're in a different environment. Also, there's a lot of neuroscience around being outside and you're just listening and walking and going. And maybe it's the ADHD kicking, but either way, I was so productive on that walk that it removed any guilt. And okay, yeah, I shouldn't feel guilty for wanting to go on a walk and work at the same time. I shouldn't feel guilty or to break from work, but this allowed me to continue the flow, get outside, walk and do work at the same time. So I literally, I instructed it that I need you to read parts to me. I'll give you feedback, take my notes, and then we continue on through the document. So I encourage you to try it. If you have another productive way that you've been doing it, again, I know that this capability was there in the past, but it's just a lot stronger now. And I felt it really effective. I used to use my notes. I would be listening to a document and then I would pause and then I would make some notes, but this was just a little bit more interactive and I can play off my ideas and capture in a different way. So that's my tap that app for this week. Get into ChatGPT, go out on a walk, bring your documents with you, but it's the interactive edit and conversation that was really effective and priming it with your prompt to say that this is what we're doing really set that work in motion. So, really super proud of it. And that's my recommendation for this week. And now let's move on. And now, time for question number 3. And this question was a private LinkedIn message. So if you got questions on the low and you want to get them answered, you can always send me a DM. And here's the question. Okay, so I actually like my job and I'm not trying to go anywhere, especially with the way things are right now. But I feel like people only see me for the work I'm already doing, and I know I could bring a lot more. How do I start showing that without making it look like I'm unhappy or I'm trying to leave? Ooh, especially with this economy, everybody's got this question on the mind. So let's get into it. All right. So, what about you? Before I get into my answers, what about you? Is there an expertise that you want to bring more awareness to? Have you been thinking about it? Are you, you've been in one place for a while doing the same thing and you have so much more to show? That's basically what that question was asking. So, what I want you guys to think about is how are you going to frame this strategically so that people can see it? I mentioned earlier in the show around cutting through the noise. And that is your biggest problem is the noise, is the distractions, and there are work distractions, phone distractions, life distractions. Just there's so much. We've got everything that we are managing and somehow we have to pay attention to somebody else, and that's where we got to think about it is, do are people looking beyond what they know you're getting done? And what you need to do is bring attention to that. And what would have been typically the response in the past is, saying, you don't need to mention that you're being underutilized. Talk about some of the things that you can start thinking about where you can add to the conversation, add to the work, right? So the thing is, instead of saying I want to do more of this, saying I see a way that I can help with this because I've done this before. So it's identifying, going back to the connecting it, right? So connecting your skill to the current problem. You've got to see that and show that you actually understand it. So you got to understand it and show your understanding of what's going on right now and then make the connection to it, right? So you got to show how what you can do that they don't really have an idea of what that is. You've got to bring that to their attention by connecting it to their problem and showing that you understand that problem. And then after, what you need to do is show the proof, show where you've done it. And that could also show up not only in that one conversation, but it can show up in what you're sharing and online or internally, some resources talking about things that you're reading in your one-on-ones, talking about things that you're working on, and letting people know that this is something that you've done in the past, and seeing how, and then making the direct connection of how it applies to the problems that you're seeing coming down the pipeline, right? And you could also create an opportunity off the side of your desk. And I know this requires work and it's not for everybody. This solution here specifically is not for everybody. But oftentimes what you can do is connect, your skill by bringing a spotlight to it in a project that you're literally working off the side of your desk. I've done that before in many situations where I've created an entire training to bring to their attention that I have created this training and here's who it serves and here's my expertise within it and here's the problem that it's serving. But also in doing that, also mentioning where I was getting certifications around actually being a trainer. So I'm showing proof of knowledge and proof of it's almost like meta proof that I can do it, right? So those are things that you want to think about is look for ways that you can showcase that and provide proof, but always connecting it back to your understanding of how you're solving a problem with this information. You could also include in your introduction sometimes another aspect of things that you're working on, especially when you're working with cross-functional teams. And if it's relevant or and if it is, relevant again to your understanding of their problem, they're going to pay attention. You can let them know, speaking of paying attention, you can let them know what you're paying attention to. These things are all so important, and I'm gonna take a look at what's in the chat right now. So if you have questions in the chat, definitely let me know. Thank you so much, George. You said, "Well said." I appreciate you, George. Thank you so much. And it is just so important that we are tactfully and strategically putting our skills out there. Because again, right now, we do have to be mindful of how we're navigating this space in this current market. But as things, especially with technology, as things are changing and they're requiring a different set of skills and proven application, sometimes you have to find ways to prove that you've done it. Not sometimes, you always have to find ways to prove that you've done it, prove that you study it, prove that you know it, and make sure that you are sharing that proof to break through the noise, to break through the distraction in context to the problems that you want to apply it to. And when you do that, people are more likely to say, "Hey, okay, let's talk about this. I didn't know that that's something you did," because now they're looking at that as, "Oh, I didn't know you had that skill or that expertise." Half the time, the reason they didn't know is because we didn't tell them. I would say not even half, I'd say I would border about like 85% of the time is because we didn't say anything. And then the rest is just weren't looking, but this is how you get their attention. So this is what I want to leave you with. Make sure that you are amen, Cher. Thank you so much. I got two Georges today. So thank you to both Georges. I appreciate you. And you got to let people know. And also make sure you're leveraging your profiles because there are opportunities that people are Googling you under the table when you're presenting something new. So when you are even presenting a new skill or something that you're working on, this is another tip. Does your profile back it up? This is your opportunity, especially with your profile, to back up what you were just talking about. Because a lot of people aren't looking on LinkedIn like that. But when they are looking, they're going to see new things that they might not have seen about you before. You can frame your proof there. You can show your expertise there. And then you bring their attention to that platform, that space, that expertise. So this is your LinkedIn profile, your LinkedIn presence, especially your profile, especially in the featured section, and especially with articles. This is your way to have your proof on the ready, proof of what you know. And that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're constantly communicating our value in conversation through our profiles and with what we create as proof. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with today. I wanted to say thank you so much for joining me live. I appreciate you more than you know. And again, if you got questions and you want to get answers, whether you leave it in the comments below, I'll pick it up. As you can see, I'll pick it up for the next episode, or you can send me a DM because you want to keep it on the low. That's all good. So thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next week. We'll try maybe Friday or Saturday. I'll see after I look at the results of people watching and what's best for you guys. And but I'll definitely be here next week, and we'll talk then. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.